In this virtual selling concrete results episode, I'll share with you an actionable strategy for increasing your probability of securing a next step and advancing your sale during a virtual conversation. One of the most challenging outcomes I hear about sales conversations is ghosting or stalled opportunities. These outcomes often result from a lack of clear expectations or commitment to a decision or a next action and can be avoided. Whether we're in a virtual conversation or not, what's important is making sure that the time together is productive for both parties involved. What's that mean? It means that something has advanced, that there's hope, that there's a next step, that there's an action committed to that is going to address a problem, opportunity, want, or need for our buyer. The good news is we lead that responsibility in our conversations. And with focus on our end, we can make sure the end of our conversation is as productive as all the rest of the information exchange that's happened. Because this is a series on virtual selling, what's different when we're virtual about closing an opportunity? Well, I think it's because we can't see them. If we're only on the telephone, we're missing all the visual cues that we would see if we're in physical proximity. If we're on video, we're not seeing what's happening outside of the camera's frame. And so we're also missing some of those visual cues. What that means then is that we need to focus more on the verbal and the audible to make sure that we are leading them in a productive conversation to a closure and commitment to keep things moving forward. It sounds easy enough, doesn't it? Yet what gets in the way? Well, often what gets in the way is our confidence that we've offered something of value, or their confidence that you are going to be able to address their problem, capture opportunities, or solve wants or needs that they put forward. And the strategy and framework I'm going to lay out for you is going to ensure an increase in confidence for both of you so that you can move forward productively. I call it the three-step finish because there's three components within this strategy. The three components are to first check for readiness, then to confirm value, and lastly, to specifically ask for a decision or commitment. I'm going to walk you through all three of those components now. First, to focus on the verbal cues, we need to prompt those cues with readiness questions. Readiness questions are questions that ask for opinions or thoughts. They're not asking them for a decision. We're testing the waters instead at this point and not diving into the deep end. So we're going to ask questions that allow us to safely give responses so that we know whether we're moving forward or we're needing to back up in some way. So here's a few of the questions that you can ask and change the words for your situation. We can ask, what final questions do you have? What else would be helpful as you make this decision? How comfortable are you with what we've discussed? Do you have any other questions or concerns at this time? And hearing a no to that question is great because it means that they don't need any other information. And it's a safe no. And we could ask something such as, what are your thoughts on what we've recommended? Of course, then we need to pause and let them talk. A good amount of time, they'll talk themselves right into the next action, or they'll ask, well, how do we get started? Or what's it going to take for me to get going on this? If the responses don't give us a commitment or decision to moving forward, then we follow that readiness check with a confirmation of value. We bring the buyer back to the outcome or the benefits that they're looking for in working with you. We refocus them on what's important, and that's the outcomes. It's not the process. It's not all the details and the fees. It's the outcomes that they're desiring from addressing their problem, opportunities, wants, or needs. You're going to say something such as, Bob and Joanne, working together, we will, and then you're going to fill in the blank of specifics that you learned were important to them, specific outcomes they're seeking, specific benefits that they desire, etc. So Bob and Joanne, in working together, we're going to be able to reduce the amount of stress that you have around this situation. Or we're going to tackle the plan so that it gets done and isn't sitting waiting for you to execute it. Or we're going to tackle the planning so that you're assured a good retirement. We're going to make sure that your deadlines are met consistently. We're going to capture the opportunity to leverage the windfall that you received, or ensure the work that you've put into, and then fill in the blank, pays off for you and your family, or you and your business, depending on who you're working with. Or another one we could say is, and working together is going to allow you to have the time to put into your higher priorities. And the key there is to give the specific priorities that they told you about so that they're relevant and most value-filled for them. That's the confirmation of value. After that confirmation of value, pause again. Allow them to add on to it, to give additional thoughts that they have, and listen closely to whatever they say at that point, because that is what's really going to be important to them in seeing value to make the change or to make the commitment to move forward in working with you. Now, if there is no response or there's just a head nodding, then the third component is to ask for a specific decision or commitment. We're going to ask questions such as, should we initiate the paperwork so we can officially begin working together? Or should we initiate the paperwork so that we can begin working on and then fill in that really important high priority item for them? We could ask them, would you like to schedule a start date or planning meeting? We could ask, will you initiate a purchase order? Or are you ready to sign the agreement? This is where we're asking for a specific action that shows they're moving forward. Now, if it's not the end of your sale, it could be looking for, are you ready to schedule our next appointment? Should we get time on the calendar to do a demo? Should we have another conversation where we invite and then whoever the other important person is? But we can be very specific so that they know what they're committing to. And if you don't ask for something specific, they can't answer with a specific commitment or decision. And you often will leave that conversation with assumptions or confusion. And both of those things lead to ghosting and stalled opportunities. So once you have that decision, whatever it is, conclude that verbal conversation with a specific who is doing what next. And in the virtual setting, include the how it's going to be done so there's no misunderstanding or missed expectation that sets the relationship off in a bad way. So leading a productive sales conversation starts with preparation, and then there's steps that we can lead the buyer through to get to this important part at the end. And by successfully concluding the conversation with specificity, you're going to have less chasing and less ghosting. When you consciously close every conversation, you're going to find that your opportunities, whether virtual or not, move forward as needed. And we have one more episode in this series on virtual selling concrete results where I'll discuss follow-up strategies. I'll see you then.